Hello, everyone, and I want to welcome you to another episode of the Better the Pond Pondcast, the Flying V edition, where we talk to incredible people who are creating impact and ripples on the pond. My name is Warren Berry, and I'm your host and the founder of Instinctive Solutions, where we believe that everyone's an odd duck, but that is what makes them awesome. Today, my guest is Julia Waller. Julia is the genius behind the unique ability process for a strategic coach. From her humble beginnings in Hanover, Ontario, Canada, Julia moved to Toronto and then left to travel the world, saw Hong Kong, Mexico, Guatemala, and other worldly destinations. She came back to Toronto, back to the nest, and has been impacting lives at Strategic Coach since. Words of wisdom from Julia on this podcast were trust your energy, give yourself permission, and love and just be yourself. Thank you, Julia, for creating so many ripples out there to better the pond. Ladies and gentlemen, Julia Waller. All right, Julia Waller, the innate ability genius from Strategic Coach. I want to thank you so much for taking the time to be a guest on the Better the Pond podcast. It is absolutely fantastic to have you.
It is a great pleasure to be here and to see an old friend and catch up a little bit too. What a great opportunity to say hello and share our joint passion for helping people grow.
Yes, absolutely. You know, we've known each other for quite a few years through Strategic Coach and then through Colby. And I did have your sister Shannon. Shannon gets a shout out, Shannon Waller. She was on my podcast as well, yet to be released. And so and then I'll do another shout out to Andre Brisson because he's the one you were on his podcast as well, the Impulsive Thinker podcast. And I listened to that podcast and I was really taken back. And Julia, there was just so many nuggets. There was so much wisdom. There was so much knowledge that you shared that I went, you know what? I have to get Julia on here so that we can get a little bit of more of that because it was genius.
Yay. Well, I have to give hats off to Andre because, of course, he's created that whole podcast as you have. I mean, I have hats off to all of you who do that. But then that was his idea to talk about, like, to interview him on his unique ability a little bit. So, and to talk about how his talents play out in this world. Because that's what I find fascinating about people. I mean, I love people and I love all parts of them, but what I really, really like to get where I can help make a difference, I think most is in helping them see who they are and see their talents and then become more conscious and aware of them. So then they can use them more and use them better and use them in better situations that are more in alignment with who they are, right? And then they can create more value and have more fun and do more of what they love to do and have more meaning in life and all of the juicy things that we all want, whatever it is individual to them.
Absolutely. So this is going to be a first. So this is just this is going to be part one, which we're going to do right away here, and then we will jump into a part two today. Where actually, we're going to do the exact same thing. So you get to be the host and interview me, and this is going to be super exciting. I'm jacked. This is going to be great.
I always would rather talk about the other person than about myself. So I'm always happy because I usually spend most of my time listening, right? That's a lot of what I do in my coaching is I listen really, really hard. And then I capture as much wisdom as I can and then reflect it back to people, which is fun.
Well, let's see how this plays out today, shall we?
Yeah, let's go and experiment.
All right. So before we start off in a lot of the questions, just sort of tell my listeners a little bit about what you do. Julia, tell us a little bit about what you do in Strategic Coach.
Yeah, so I am one of our team members at Strategic Coach. I've been here, I'm in my 26th, it'll be 26 years this August, which is kind of wild. And a lot of our team members actually have been around 10, 20, sometimes 25, my sister even longer, 30 plus years.
Wow.
And so we're an entrepreneurial coaching company and we work with highly successful, ambitious entrepreneurs who have many talents and they kind of reach a ceiling of complexity is what we call it, where they've gotten like they can't work any harder. They have to start working even smarter and more strategically to align their talents with the activities ahead of them because they want to grow. They want to grow 10x. They want to grow their business even more than that sometimes. So they're very growth-oriented people. And so we help them. We have a whole workshop program. It's a quarterly workshop sessions where they come once a quarter in a group of other entrepreneurs which for one thing helps them feel not isolated anymore, because they're usually the different ones in their families, or the ones who didn't do so well, didn't work well and play with others so well in school, or whatever it is. So they end up having a community of like-minded people, which is worth the investment in the program itself. But then we have various tools and concepts, and just after I started at Coach, I was really curious about what was going on in the workshops, and I started creating all these systems and documenting things that were usually in people's heads. This was many years ago. And then I started managing a team, the team that was coaching all of our associate coaches, because we have other entrepreneurs who are part of our program who have their own businesses who coach for us as well, and they needed training and developing. So then I had a team to manage, and my first question was, well, how am I going to make sure? It was actually Barb DaCosta, a common friend of ours. So how do I make sure Barb is growing? And so I looked around and I found all these tools around this concept of unique ability, which is basically what you love to do and do best. So it's your talent plus your passion together. And so I kind of just evolved this process of helping people understand what their unique ability is. So I used a lot of Dan and Babs. So Dan Sullivan and Babs Smith are the owners of Strategic Coach, our fearless leaders and amazing people, and started doing this unique ability coaching with people just one-on-one. And it has now evolved. I've been now doing it with our clients, with our highest level clients, for the last probably almost 15 years, and with our backstage team members for 23 years probably. And so I get to do a really deep dive into what someone's all about. I call it the magic behind the curtain. So I get to go behind the curtain and see, what's Warren all about? What are Warren's talents? Ooh, that's really fascinating. And I find all these golden gems, and then I kind of bring them out and we polish them up and we see what they are. We put words around them, we describe them. So you end up with a big page that describes who you are and what you're all about, and kind of ends up being your purpose statement really in life, is about how you can create value for other people. And then of course it's everyone's job to go out and find how we're going to apply that in the most productive and most fun, enjoyable way. And I help people sort of nurture them along their growth path as they go forward. So that's the long answer for what I get to do for a living, which is just a joy and an honor. I love it.
I will say that my time that I spent in Strategic Coach was it was incredibly impactful. It really was. I mean, it just totally changes your thinking. And there was a big part of being around other like-minded people, like where you didn't, and I felt the same way. I felt very alone. I felt like on an island. I was the odd one. I was the odd duck, and no one really understood how I thought. And once you put those minds together, and it was like, oh, this is like home.
Yes.
That again, with all, of course, the incredible people at Strategic Coach, but all in all the tools and things, it was a game changer, like an absolute game changer.
Yeah, people say that all the time, that I feel like I'm at home here, and they feel like they can just be themselves. And I think everyone knows, if you're with certain people where you just feel like you can let down your guard, nobody's judging you, everyone's interested in you, they want to learn from you. We have a lot of big learners in our program, and there's so much shared learning from, they want to learn from your successes, they want to learn from your failures, especially entrepreneurs. They want to learn, like, how did you screw up and how do I avoid that myself? Or they are inspired by seeing what someone else is doing. All of a sudden someone's got a big goal and they're hitting it. They're like, wow, okay, now I'm going to play a bigger game too. So all of that, it's like this really beautiful synchronistic experience when everybody's in the same room, and we've got all these amazing thinking tools they help you think differently. And so I'm so fortunate, been so blessed to be kind of grow up with this culture, this positive culture really. And with a great team, and because we were just talking about culture a little bit too before we started, and we care about our people and we care about our culture, and we want to have fun and we want to nurture people's growth and have them, we push people to grow as well. And if you're not going to grow, then you probably shouldn't be working at Strategic Coach anymore either. But then there's going to be a lot of place for you to do that and figure that out for yourself too.
Yeah, and I've met I've met so many great people through Strategic Coach, and on that point though, but they force you to grow. Like they challenge you to grow. And the one that I really enjoyed too, before we move on, is like, and it was always focusing on what's right.
Yes.
Right,
yep.
The positivity of what's going right. And again, that we all tend to have this, we want to go out and solve problems, but this is what's wrong and this is what's wrong, and then the focus on what's wrong. But it was always that was always about what's right, and then grow upon that. So
Exactly. And that ties very much into unique ability. One of the exercises we have people do is where we have you send out a letter just to 8 or 10 people that you know in your life, your friends, your family, your colleagues, your clients, whomever you choose. And you say, hey, what's right about me? What's great about me? What's my unique ability? What do you value about me? What do you count on me for? And people find it very disconcerting to even ask for that feedback. We're so used to being told, here's how you can improve. And, from school systems where they give you a report card and everyone looks at, the lowest mark, and then they want to help you get better in your lowest mark versus looking at, my daughter whose highest mark is in art. It's like, wow, okay, I'm going to make sure she's taking art classes. I'm going to nurture her drawing and her creativity and her imagination, because that's where she's thriving. And sure, we're going to shore up some of the areas that she's going to need help on. But yeah, we're not used to getting to looking for what's right. Our brains are wired to see the negative stuff in the world too. So it's all about creating those habits of, we do our positive focus every meeting that we start. What's great, what's exciting. That's how you and I started today too.
Yep.
And everyone gets feeling good, and then your confidence also goes up, which in terms of our program too, then you're open to new learning. You're not going to be open to something new if you're coming in feeling down. And sometimes the world can beat you up a little bit. And so we're going to regain that energy and confidence. So focusing on what's right, and then helping do more of, like you and I do with our coaching, help people focus on their strengths and not, shore up the weaknesses, find other people around you to take over those areas, use technology. Don't beat yourself up for not being good at everything. Really hone in on the areas that you love doing and that you're really naturally good at, and you want to keep getting better. That's the unique ability zone. And then you get into this really great energetic flow of, we could go bigger than that.
Yes,
the universe. We could bring in the universe there, but that's
we can bring in the universe.
bring in the universe.
Yeah. You're like you become a very big Rolex watch. It's just perpetual motion.
That's right. I love that.
Feeds itself.
Yeah. Thanks for the tangible. That's good.
All right. So Julia, what got you from being a gosling? And I'm talking like, the very, very, very beginnings from being a gosling to leaving the nest. Now, again, leaving the nest is either you made a decision to leave the nest and get out, or you were gently nudged or kicked out. We don't know for sure.
Yeah.
And to where you are today, Julia Waller, what is your backstory?
Interesting. Well, I was born in a really small town north of Toronto. My sister and I lived there I lived there till I was 6. We had this giant big house that was my favorite house, 5 bedrooms, 5 bathrooms. It was an old nursing home that converted into a home.
Oh,
we had it had a playroom where you could paint everywhere. I mean, it was the best for a kid. It was the best place in the world. But I was a super shy, kind of scared kid. And my big sister was like, what are you so scared of? She was like, not like me at all. I was really sensitive. I mean, I really could feel the spirits that were still left in this house from the nursing home that was there before. So I think I kind of felt that kind of stuff beforehand. Anyway, we moved to Toronto. Excuse me, I'm gonna have some water.
Before you do that, before you jump into that, what was the name of the town that you were born in?
Oh, Hanover.
Hanover, Ontario.
Yeah, Hanover, Ontario. It's a cute little town. We were kind of like the very small town sort of life, which was great. But then we moved to this big city, and we were sort of launched into, I don't think we really knew how to deal with a big city very well. Grew up in Toronto, and then, fast forward through my sister and I went to different schools. I followed the extended French program because I had a liking for French, and I kind of followed that through high school and everything. And then I went off to university. And my roommate, it's funny, my roommate in first year, she was studying to be a teacher. And I thought, I'm never going to become a teacher. That is the last thing. And you know where the story's going now, because I said that. But I have a degree in psychology, because I didn't know what else I wanted to do. Now, it turns out I actually really kind of love the psychology of people and understanding how they tick, and organizational psychology and things like that, how organizations work. Anyway, at the end of my 4 years, honors degree, I was like, I took a year off and sort of waiting for my boyfriend at the time to graduate. And then I ended up working as a teacher's assistant in a school. And I thought, you know what, I'd kind of rather be the teacher than the assistant. So I went back to school and got my teaching degree. my boyfriend got his teaching degree. I taught for a year in Ontario. And then I was like, you know what? I got to get out of this place. The youthful took where I live for granted very much. Didn't appreciate Canada, didn't appreciate how beautiful it is here, how much freedom we have here. But I was like, I just need to see the world and travel. So we ended up getting a job in Hong Kong. And he graduated and we both went together. So we taught at a Canadian International School in Hong Kong for 3 years. We traveled all around Asia. It was phenomenal. It was a great experience. Came back to Canada, lived in Montreal for a few months, and then we were both looked at each other. We're like, we're not ready to be back yet. Let's go away again. And so then we left and we went to Monterrey, Mexico, and we taught there for 2 years at an American International School. Amazing parents, amazing kids in both places. Traveled around Mexico, Guatemala, different places. And then I came home at Christmas one time and I was like, you know what? I'm ready to come home. I think I'm ready to come home. And my sister, I'm a family person. Like I really do love my family. So I'd had my time away. I'd appreciated all these great travels in my 20s and everything. And then I was ready to come home. So that was a big turning point. So my boyfriend and I broke up and we kind of tried to stay together and all that. But then I started a brand new job. My sister, who worked at Strategic Coach, she said, oh, you should come work with us. And I said, no, I'm not a business person, right? I'm an educator. She said, yeah, but it's like an education company, but for business people. I said, oh, well, I used to go visit her and everyone would be sitting around eating cereal and they seemed like really kind of cool people. Like it didn't seem like some stuffy business place, which is not in any way, shape, or form. So anyway, so Shannon's like, well, we got to do your Colby first before we hire you. So I'm like, Colby, what's this Colby thing? Right? So here she is giving me the Colby assessment to figure out how I naturally take action and strive. Turns out I'm very opposite to her Colby profile. I'm an initiating follow through, so I organize things. I did not have any awareness of this at all, by the way, when I did my Colby.
Really?
No clue. Not a clue. I was like, what? I do? Yeah, no idea. And I started at Strategic Coach. So, and then I've had all these I kind of told a little bit of that story about how Babs would kind of nudge me into different directions. Like the company needs this. And partly it was me just seeing stuff that needed to be done. So partly I started just documenting all the training and development systems because there were no coaching guidelines written down back in the day. People would just go and watch Dan coach and then they would go coach. I was like, well, isn't this written down somewhere? And they're like, no, things are evolving quickly here, right? But if you want to write them down, and it was Ross Slater, I give him total credit because he's like, Julia, why don't you, instead of complaining that these things don't exist, why don't you just go and do it? I said, I'm not allowed to do that? Really? How do I know if I'll be good at it? And so I just started writing stuff down, documenting systems, writing down how things were coached. And then that evolved into Babs saying, well, why don't you lead the coach training? We were getting bigger and get more coaches. So she turned over the coaching of the coaches to me and to my team. So we took that over. So, and then the unique ability, as I explained, came from my first session with Barb because I wanted to make sure she was growing. And then Dan and Babs gave us permission to write a book about unique ability because we thought there should be one. So they're like, well, great, you guys do it. So we wrote our first book on unique ability. And then we had a client who was so adamant. He's like, I've read this book, but I need someone to walk me through this process. And we had a whole coaching process written out in the book. And this is what we do as the core of our program. And he was really pushy. He finally got a yes because we don't really do one-on-one coaching. And Babs like, great, Julia will do it. And I was like, what? Me? And so then I gradually started. And now that is my job. That is basically my full-time job, is coaching our clients one-on-one to help them understand their unique ability and do more of it. So that's from little tiny one to now.
So what is that is not a straight line.
In my mind, it's perfectly connected. If you look back, you can connect all the dots.
So, what did your parents do?
My dad was a lawyer, a hippie, but a lawyer.
Hippie lawyer.
A hippie lawyer. And my mom was a hippie. And she was a housewife at first. She was a nurse. Back in the day, it was either nurse or teacher. So she was a nurse. And then she looked after us when we were little, but she was always, we're in this small town, Hanover. She's flying to California to do trust workshops and learn about trust theory from these California dudes Jack Gibb wrote a book on trust. So she was going off doing this, growth and development, personal stuff. And my dad was like a lawyer and had his practice because his dad was a lawyer. So he only became a lawyer, I think, because his brother had already become an engineer. So one of them had to become a lawyer, right? But he's, embroidering Jonathan Livingston Seagull on our, pants in the early, late 60s, early 70s and stuff like that. But yeah, he was a lawyer all his life, but he wanted to be a pilot. So he ended up being a lawyer for de Havilland Aircraft in Toronto, in Townsview. So he could borrow the Turbo Beaver and fly it up to the cottage sometimes. And he loved planes and he loved flying. So he managed to kind of do both. And then mom had various careers, and she was a human resource specialist, and then she ended up working at Strategic Coach as well. Shannon got her back from when she was living out in Vancouver and dragged her back, and she worked at Coach. She actually just had her rewirement party only about a month ago, and she's 82, and she's worked at Coach for 27 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is a kind of a family organization, isn't it?
Very family. We're not the only family in the organization either. We don't, it's not our business, but we sort of act like it is. I guess. We take ownership as though it is, which I think a lot of our team members actually do. And because when there's so much autonomy given to you and you're focused so much in your unique ability, like I run my little area of unique ability. I use a lot of the, the team supports me for sure, but nobody's kind of looking over my shoulder. As long as I'm getting more people in and people are saying great things, and then I get more referrals, then I'm, good to go. Right. And I'm creating value for my clients.
And you said that you and your sister, you and Shannon, went to different schools together.
Yeah, we went, I think from grade 7 on, we went to different schools. Yeah, she went to one middle school. I went to different high schools. We went to different universities. Like we went completely different directions, and then we came back together at Strategic Coach, which is very interesting. My mother as well. I mean, I was off living in other countries. My mom moved to Vancouver. She asked us permission to leave home, move away from home. We're like, go ahead, mom, you can leave.
Oh, so she left. She got permission to leave the nest.
Yeah. She got permission to leave the nest. And Shannon was the one who stayed at home, actually, of anybody. And then I, got magnetized. I feel like we all got magnetized to Strategic Coach because of the culture and what Coach is all about in terms of growth and transformation. We're all growth and transformation people. Yeah. So we're very different. We operate differently, but we all have that in common.
The other purpose is that's your North Star.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right. So Julia, what's the greatest thing, positive or negative, that's happened to you that ruffled your feathers? And how did you respond to it?
Wow. Recent or old?
At any time.
I think, since I'm back in the past a little bit, the coming back from living overseas and, breaking up with my boyfriend, basically leaving my career because I left my teaching career behind. So I taught for 6 years and I came to Strategic Coach and they're like, well, we don't really care about your past career. We just care about, do you have any entrepreneurial experience? I'm like, no. So starting fresh and reinventing my life when I came back from that, I think was a huge deal. And I mean, I think I was just kind of following my nose. I don't think I really knew what I was doing. And it took me a while to kind of get sorted out, but I think pretty quickly I started carving out my own lane at Strategic Coach, because again, there was a culture and a freedom to be able to do that. Mm-hmm. And then the more I learned about unique ability, the more I loved it. And then it took me time because I'm not going to just jump in and take big risks. I'm going to have to feel my way through. And then I feel proud of what I've created in terms of my coaching that I do with my clients. And it's such a deep dive process. It goes deeper every year that I do it with people. We used to do it in one day and now it takes 2 full days, or it takes, 12 hours on virtual Zoom to really do a really deep dive into what someone's habits are that make up their unique ability. And then we boil it down to a statement, and then we analyze their activities and we create an action plan to help them do more of what they love to do. And, I'm doing it with these really brilliant people who are up to really cool, big things. So, I feel like I've come a long way from the little small town, Julia, the shy, I was listening back then. It's funny because I was the quiet one. I was listening, but now what I do for a living so much is listening.
Right.
And hearing and then maximizing as well, because I want to help nudge my people in the right direction, because they want it too. That's what they want, right? Or they wouldn't come to me.
Yeah, it sounds like you said you've always been a listener, but you were shy then. I mean, what that tells me is that, you're doing the same thing. You just gained a lot of confidence along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my mom will tell the story of when we lived in Hanover. There was a little girl down the street who got an unhappy, back in the days when they gave unhappy face stickers on the paper. So apparently this was mortifying to me, and I felt really bad for her. So I helped her with her paper. I don't know what it was. I don't remember, but I helped her. I really wanted her to get a happy face sticker on the thing. So there was a lot of compassion and care, and then, and then supporting and helping people grow and develop. So I think, yeah, the confidence has taken me a long time to get to where I'll say yes to a podcast, just because that's my goal. I don't, I say yes to podcasts to grow. Other people, you'd probably be like, oh, it'll be fun. I'm like, yeah, I'm doing it to grow. Now I know it will be fun if I have a great host like you are, right? And the person makes you feel comfortable or creates a space for you to feel comfortable. Not that you can make people feel anything, but then it becomes fun. And I do love talking about strategic coach. I love talking about unique ability, because it's such an empowering concept to know who you are. If little Julia didn't know the talents that she had back then, right? So eventually I'd love kids to know that they have these talents. So using Colby with kids is a great way to start that kind of journey, because I've done it with my daughter, and she's just turning 11, and she knows her Colby, and she's just kind of getting into where it means something to her, but I know what it means.
Right.
So I can help navigate. I can be aware of, and I'm big on giving her freedom to do things the way she's naturally wired to do them, because I know about Colby. Thank goodness. If I didn't, now I think as a teacher, I instinctively knew that too, though, because I didn't try to make my kids be all the same way.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot to be said for that. I mean, look at my two kids, and they're completely different, and how I parent them is very different, because it's, what they need, or what they feel they need to be successful, or the path they're going to take is, I trust me, they're they're very different. But knowing that, though, is such a gift. It's so empowering, because they just accept them for who they are. I look at it as, with kids growing up, it's bowling. That's how I look at it. And our job is just to put the bumper pads up so they don't fall in the gutter, right? And my daughter's going to bounce around all over the place, and hopefully make it to the end. My son's got more of a curve, going down the lane. But still, we would put the bumper pads up for them, and right, and then you just help them along the way, right?
That's right. Yeah,
They can,
let the ball roll, right? You don't have to. They got that themselves.
yeah,
That's great.
they're gonna they're gonna do what they're gonna do, whether you like it or not. So
you got to be there to help them and shore them in when you need to.
Just put the bumper pads up. So, all right. So, did you know, Julia, that geese fly with 71% more efficiency when flying in the V formation than flying alone?
Wow,
So,
that's incredible.
yeah, 71%. So what do you think the secret is to getting a team flying in the V formation?
Ooh, I'm sure there's multiple secrets depending on who you talk to on your podcast.
I'm talking to
great angle.
I'm talking to the Julia Waller.
From my perspective, well, I feel like a broken record because this is what I talk about all the time, but I think if everyone is operating in their zone of unique ability, in their zone of genius, or whatever name you want to give it, but they've got their own energy and their own motivation, and they know where they are in the formation, right? They know their position and their spot, and they're using their own natural abilities that they brought with them. They're not being forced into, if they're not good at, I'm assuming they change spots and everything, right? But I don't know how these really work, but
they do.
Certain people are going to be better at certain spots maybe than others, or if everyone's in that right spot and they communicate well, which is a big important part. And I don't know how geese communicate, but I'm sure they have lots of cool ways of communicating.
Geese honk to motivate. They don't honk to complain. That's why they honk when they fly. They honk to motivate each other.
Like in India, when you go to India, that's what I learned in my travels in Asia. People honk all the time. It's not because they're mad. It's because they want to tell you they're there or ask you to move.
Right. It's communication.
Right? It's communication. So when I honk in Toronto, they don't quite have the same.
Yeah, they don't see it that way.
Don't see it that way. They're like, why did you honk? I'm like, no, I'm just trying to let you know, don't hit me, I'm coming through. That's what happens when you travel overseas. You learn these things. But Yeah, so I mean, I think the best way to get everyone working together is to have everyone in their area of unique ability as much as possible, growing and evolving in that way, and then communicating with each other and having really great teamwork along the way.
I think you said something earlier that, before you did your Colby, that you didn't know. You didn't know you had those talents. And I find that really interesting. And um knowing what you know now, like, and you talk about being when you started with coach and all of a sudden you're going to start documenting things and creating processes. I mean, those are things that I'd rather stick needles in my eyes.
Yep.
Right. And so, like, really, I was like, wow, like there's people who actually
Yeah.
really love doing
It's
those
just one of
things.
those things you're like, wow, people really like to do these
Yes.
things. I know it sounds so dorky and so nerdy, but I think we're all nerdy in our own ways. But those are yeah, they don't sound that exciting to people, right?
Right.
I don't like documenting all kinds of processes. I will just add that because some people make the mistake and think, oh, she likes to document processes. I don't like documenting administrative processes. That
Mm.
does not interest me. I can do it and I can do a good job, but I like growth processes and I like people's unique ability. I like documenting that, or I like documenting if I'm listening to Dan coach and I get his quotes or the gems of wisdom that he gets. I like kind of documenting wisdom, or I would interview you on how you do your coaching. That to me is interesting to document. Documenting a basic administrative process, that doesn't fascinate me.
It's interesting. What you just made me think of is just because you're good at it doesn't mean that you like it.
That's right. And we differentiate that from unique ability activities to excellent activities, because you're really good at the excellent activities. You got a great reputation, great teamwork, but you don't have the passion for them. So a lot of people in this world are stuck in activities like that because they're good at them. So you're like, oh, Warren's good at that. We'll make you do that. And it's like, you're like, yeah, I'm good at it, but it doesn't give me any energy. It doesn't spark me up. So then it's not unique ability anymore.
Right. And it's just now it becomes just a task.
It
Right.
becomes a thing. And yeah, and you're bored or you're drained, or you're frustrated. But we want to get you out of those activities eventually. Sorry, I interrupted. I know you were going somewhere else. And now I got me
No.
not understanding my talents. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah. And so, I mean, so obviously I'm assuming that was just a massive game changer for you because, I mean, I think when, not knowing you're kind of you're flying in the V, but you don't really know where you fit. So all of a
Yeah,
sudden, now, I mean, as an example of this, and of course, geese do, they do change out all the time.
yeah,
And so when it comes to unique ability, well, you're now the lead goose, where before you were just sort of flying back in the V and, hoping that you're going to land somewhere.
that's right. Yeah, and I think not even knowing that you're adding value to the V, right? Because you don't know what it is. You're like, well,
Mhm.
am I making a difference here? I think most of us want to make a difference. We want to be useful. We
Mhm.
want to be used in some way. So yeah, I think it is a total game changer. It's like the first time you do your Colby, um, then it's like your eyes open to this whole thing that you didn't even know was there. And I think my sister knew about Colby, so she could see it in me.
Mhm.
I know they were hoping for a little longer quick start. That was always the joke.
Mhm.
My sister's a 9 and I'm a 3. So we worked together for about 6 months, pretty closely together. And then I was like, what else in this company can I go to? Because between if she's a 2 follow through, I'm an 8, and she's a 9 quick start, and I'm a 3. It's a very, very different way of operating. So we learned that we love each other, but we need to be operating in different domains.
come come together, go apart. Come together, go apart. Yes,
Catherine
exactly.
was like, never work in the same room. And we at one point we had our office in the same space. It was a disaster. Yeah. She's like, at least hang a sheet between you or something. But everyone would knock on the door and say, do you mind if I interrupt? And Shannon would be like, great, come on in. And I'd be like, oh my God, you just interrupted me already. And I'm already going nuts. So we were not, Shannon just stopped coming down to that room. She just stayed up in her other office. She's like, just call me when you need me and I'll come down. I'm like, great. Then nobody will interrupt me.
There you go. Perfect.
Yeah, because we did workshop design for many years. I skipped over that whole part, but we
Mm.
used to design the materials for the program with
Mm.
the associate coaches help and everything. And now someone better, Kathy Davis, has taken that over and taken that to a whole. It's like you do things for a while and then someone else comes in who can elevate it and take it to the next level. That wasn't totally my unique ability. So that's like
Right.
over the time, I think this is true for everybody. They kind of shave off parts that are not unique ability until they kind of get to a place where it's like, oh, doing this particular thing with this group of audience, this is like where the magic lights up.
Yeah, I think what you said is really important right there. And just for my listeners and people in business to just to really sort of figure out the things that, there's all the things you have to do, but as you develop and grow and build that team, there's things you start to just, clear the way on, right? Because there's other who do it better than you can.
That's right.
Right. And as you start to, I always say about, going fast and going forward with efficiency is not about going fast and being efficient. It's about getting rid of resistance. Because once you
Yes.
get rid of resistance, it just naturally flows. And so it's not about flying faster. It's about getting rid of the resistance, and and everything naturally starts to flow.
That's right. When you're in the unique ability zone, there's total flow, movement, and speed because of that. It's natural, right? You don't
Mm.
have to fight against anything. Whereas when you're in excellent abilities, or if you're not very good at something, boy, there's gonna be a lot of drag, right?
Hmm.
It will be a drag,
Yes, it'll
literally.
be a
But
drag.
yeah, I love that. I love that about resistance, getting rid of resistance. So yeah, the more and more you're doing things according to your Colby and your talents, things flow.
Things flow. I get it. I love being in that space because it is literally, nothing. It's nothing but fun. And it's
Super
just,
fun.
yeah.
It's so satisfying. So it really is fun too. I find it very fun as well.
So, and this is going to sound redundant, but because we know which we love doing, but what are you doing right now to better the pond? Like, what ripples are you creating? And this is where, I know from talking to you that you love doing unique ability and all those things, but what do you think what are the ripples are you creating, Julia, out there in the world? What are you doing to better the pond?
Well, thank you. I love ripples, first of all. Like that is part of what I love is the ripple effect. If I, people say, well, why are you working just one-on-one with people? It's like, yeah, but the people that I'm working with, one of my client, he's got 500 team members. Okay. So now he's now got the context of unique ability that he's taking back at a higher level into his whole. So all of those team members are now being impacted, and he's meeting with his leadership team, getting them aligned in their unique ability activities. He's got his wife and his kids and his community that he makes a difference in. So I think, when you're working with these highly successful, really brilliant, giving, generous, visionary, innovator people, then they go out and use, first of all, they take what they do with you when you're coaching. They're very coachable, and they apply it. Like they apply it like crazy. One of my clients, he got out of being in his office. He's hired better people. He's gone, traveling all over the place with his family, right? Like the ripple effects to the people in their innermost family are first, and then it goes beyond that into their team, because I work with business owners, so they are the big people in there. They're the owners, right? So they have a huge impact on the people around them, and then of course on their clients. So they're now creating even more value. So there's ripple effects in so many different dimensions that it's very gratifying. And I never hear about what they all are really, but they're out there. Because
Hmm.
even in strategic coach, before I started doing my coaching, we'd have kids who would say, thank you for giving me my father back.
Mm.
You're like, okay, if we helped a kid get their, have their father be present and actually take days off from work and be part of their child's life. Or a lot of clients will say, well, I love strategic coach for me, but I really want to help my kids have a better life and a better future. I want to help my spouse. So all of the things that we teach at coach, they ripple effect through everybody's families and communities. So I think that I think just being the force for unique ability and giving people permission to be themselves. And people are also much nicer to be around when they're in their unique ability. They're not as grumpy, they're not frustrated, they're not as irritated. Nobody's perfect, but we all go there. But you're a much better person. And I think even if you just impact your family in that way, that's totally worth it.
Yeah, I think that's, I was talking to a gentleman just recently, and he was talking about, he was a chair for Tech Canada, and he said, he goes, I've never seen or heard about so many screwed up kids. And it really impacted me. Like it really made me stop and go, wow, like what is going on? So, and I think it's part of that of, well, I'll work harder and I'll work harder, but the kids never, the dad's not around, or
I'm
they're
doing it
old.
for you,
Do it
right?
for you,
That whole
yeah.
thing. Yeah.
And then but the lesson that's learned is if I work harder, then I'll, I guess I'll make more money, I suppose. So that generationally, right, carries over.
That's right.
And so when I look at the ripple effect, what you're talking about is when I got my father back, but he's taking time off or going on holidays where, he's got more free days. He's happier, right? That people can then, kids can see like, hey, you actually can be successful and be happy at the same time. What a concept.
What a concept, right? Yeah, that's what we're going for. We want all of it. We don't want just one without the other. Yeah.
Love it. So, what's one lesson that you've learned along your path that you would share with an entrepreneur starting a business today?
I think it goes back to trust your energy around things. Trust your energy. So if it's just another way of getting at unique ability, really, because if you are really energized by a certain activity and then another activity you're not energized by it, find someone to do the one that doesn't energize you, because you're going to work really hard. It's going to be exhausting. You're still going to get a result because you're tenacious and you work hard, but it's not going to be as fun and it's not going to flow like we were talking about. So trust your energy and then give yourself permission to let go. I think a lot of it is permission based, and giving yourself permission to let go of the things that are not your unique ability and really give yourself permission to lean in. Trust that you have a unique ability. Trust your energy. Your energy is the biggest clue. If you're doing something and time is flying and you're in the zone and you're having a blast, that's got to be unique ability. There's some element of there, whether it's what you're doing and then in conjunction with the audience. And the other thing, audience ties into energy too. So if the audience isn't appreciating you or using your unique ability or making it better, they might not be the right audience for you. Some people have this amazing unique ability, but they're not working with the right people. The first workshop Dan ever coached, he said, I'm never going to coach a workshop ever again. And Bab's like, well, let's just see. They were the wrong audience. They weren't entrepreneurs. They weren't the decision makers. So once we switched out and made sure everybody was an entrepreneur who could make their own decisions, like that's Dan's favorite audience. And then he's off to the races. So yeah, I think trusting yourself, your energy makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you're onto something here, and I think this is a great opportunity to learn. And if you can just elaborate a little bit more, just for the audience, to say what does it feel like when you're not in your your unique ability, or what does it feel like when you're not doing the things that really light you up versus when they are, right? We talked about flow, but just can you elaborate just a little bit more on that? I think there's a lot of learning here.
Sure. I mean, pick an activity that you don't like doing. Like, let's say I'm going to make you sit down and document processes. How are you going to feel about that? Like you're immediately your heart's going to sink, right? I can think back to when I used to have to do the budgeting and accounting for my team, because I was a team leader. So the team leader had to do that.
Right.
I would have to come in on a Saturday when nobody was around, right? I'm not a dumb person, but it's not my unique ability at all to do accounting, budget. I do not like spreadsheets at all. I like people, right? I like people and talking to people and having conversations with people. So I had to sit in a room. It took me probably, 6 hours. It would take someone else maybe an hour to get it done. I needed total silence. I needed total focus. It was totally draining. I hated doing it. I felt like I was missing out on other things. It was a waste of time. I thought, geez, there's got to be some better way. And finally, someone on my team, she's like, oh, I have a side degree in accounting. Do you want me to just do it for the whole team? And I was like, oh, thank you. Whereas if you contrast that to me in my coaching sessions, where I'm in this zone, having this amazing, deep conversation about who someone is and why they do things and what their talents are, and describing what they actually are, and then articulating them and wordsmithing them, and getting clarity around them, and then having them have ahas like, wow, I never thought about it before. I never shared this with anybody before. Wow, can I really let go of that? Is that okay? And I'm like, yes, of course, it makes total sense. And I'm just, encouraging, have courage to let go of things. Then you can hear the difference in my energy when I'm talking about that versus the budgeting things. And there's some stuff in between where you're like, well, I'm good at it and I'm okay at it, and I can do it for a while, but it might be just not that stimulating to me for a while, but it's okay. So there's some things in the middle. But again, it's pretty obvious. Everyone knows what they don't like doing. Pretty clear. They just haven't nobody in the world really says, well, you can redesign your job description based on what you love to do. Well, that's what unique ability organizations do. They're like, let's hire you. First of all, we're going to hire a person who really loves doing this stuff. We've had people who love cleaning the fridge. We have people who love putting out all of the workbooks and the notebooks and the pencils and the pens and everything all perfectly. They love that.
Mhm.
There's people who love to cook. I hate to cook. Right? To me, it's like, oh, okay, what am I going to make? And I have to go. Whereas other people are like, ooh, give me a fridge with 5 ingredients, and I'm going to
Mhm.
make you up you're probably more like that. You're just going to wing it. I get immediately stressed, right? That's another word, like stressed out. Oh my God, what am I going to do? I need the recipe. My mom's like, there is no recipe, just make it up. And I was like, I don't even know what that means. Until she did my Colby, she's like, geez, I thought this girl was, bright enough. But the fact that I would be just like frozen because I didn't know how to make stuff up on the spot.
I think
Anyway, feel the contrast.
yeah, you said something really important there is don't mistake this for intelligence.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because you're smart, but just because you're frozen because you don't follow a recipe, that has nothing to do with intelligence. It's just right. It's just it doesn't align energetically.
Yeah. And from a cognitive perspective, Kathy Colby's done lots of studies on people who are very highly intelligent, but she has them operate against their grain, and they're dithering. I remember that from one of her studies. They can't take action.
Yeah.
They don't know how to take action because they're being told to be opposite. And I just on the spot to make something up for me is very hard. Like if you ask me some off the wall question, I'm going to be, I might be frozen for a second, right? I might not know what to say. Now, if it's something I know well, then I can draw more, or I just talk about my experiences, then I can do that as I get more experience. But it's like making you do all the fact finder follow through stuff.
Ugh.
You would lose your mind.
Ugh.
I mean, you'd procrastinate it too. You just probably wouldn't do it, or you'd come up with some shortcut to get it done, or you'd find someone else to do it for you.
Yeah.
I would stress over it and try to get it done dutifully, and neither of those is good. Neither of those gets a good result. If we want productivity and results in our businesses, neither of those things are going to be good. So really, from a productivity and success and results standpoint, you want people in their unique ability.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Perfect. One last question for you, Julia, is if this is where we're going to stick you a little bit. If you were standing on the top of a mountain and the whole world was intently listening to you, what would you say?
Love yourself.
Love yourself.
That's my intuition. Just gave me that answer. Love yourself. Love yourself and be yourself. I think if everyone did that, cut themselves a little more slack, love themselves, appreciated who they are, didn't compare themselves, I could fall short in many ways if I compared myself to you. Same with you, with me, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if you just be yourself, love yourself and be yourself. And I think that's how I was raised. My mom raised us to trust ourselves, and we were brought up in a loving family. And I don't think I loved myself when I was little, because I don't think little Julie didn't know that I had created any value, right? And I think that's something I've learned over time.
And I've always said comparison is the thief of joy.
I know, it's such a great quote. Yeah, it's so true. And we all kind of do it.
Yeah, so. That is so true.
Yeah.
All right, so I want to thank you, Julie, for your time today and sharing of your stories. Now, if anyone wants to find you, where do they go?
Yeah, well, strategiccoach.com is my home. And uniqueability.com, we have another little tiny site if you want to just learn about unique ability. But if you're a successful entrepreneur and you want to hear about unique ability, is the core concept of our whole program. So doing unique ability in real time every quarter after quarter is the best way to really do it. Mm-hmm. And that's the best place to find us.
And are you active on social media at all?
Strategic coaches. I mean, I'm on LinkedIn once in a while, not so often, and I'm trying to stay away from. In my goal to be present with my child and my work. I'm not on social media that much myself, but strategic coach is definitely on social media on all the platforms. You can find us there.
Perfect. Well, there you have it, folks. It was a great time here with Julia Waller, and this is Warren Barry, and I'm flocking off to take you beyond the pond to better the pond, because we're better together. Thank you, Julia.
Thanks so much, Warren. Thanks for your great questions.